Damn, Xbox is gonna have to save Sony by making sure PlayStation players have something to play this year?
What did he say?
I mean, they are going multi-platform right now, right? Look, it has been a busy couple of weeks in the console space. Rumors of Xbox going multi-platform, which is getting addressed in the Xbox podcast in less than 48 hours at the time of this recording. Nintendo Switch 2/Pro rumors and specs are now leaking even more and more. And now Sony has announced that they are not going to be releasing any currently existing big first-party franchise games until March 2025. Woo! So, does this mean PlayStation is going to be looking like Xbox back in 2022? What about third-party support? 2024 is currently looking to be a very interesting year. So, let's talk about it. This video is going to focus on the PlayStation news, since we have analytics and public information now, while we wait for the Xbox podcast to hopefully provide more details on the whole multi-platform rumors, again in less than 48 hours. As for Nintendo, well, they continue to deny the next console even exists, so we'll simply just wait for the inevitable. Oh, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date on everything gaming and our in-depth guides. Now, with that shameless plug out of the way, let's get this discussion going. Let's start with the most recent news we just learned from the Sony financial results of the last 3 months, along with some data for sales on consoles, subscriptions, and more. Now, the first screenshot that we want to draw your attention to is right here. This is going to break down everything in the physical year 2022 and 2023. Remember, a physical year is not like a normal year. Fiscal year 2023 will end in March of 2024. This picture right here shows things like game software, physical software sales, digital sales, add-on content, hardware sales of the console itself, and even active PlayStation Plus members. As we'd expect from a company like Sony/PlayStation, things like digital software sales have continued to increase year after year and even surpass physical sales, which I personally am not a big fan of to see, especially with the recent trend of people losing their digital products that they just simply are purchasing and then they don't have access to after a while. And that's not just with Sony, that's literally everywhere for the most part. Or it simply shows you that this is a trend that will continue on regardless. One thing I'm personally a little shocked to see is the monthly active users on PSN. With a 15 to almost 30% increase that we saw last year in the cost of PlayStation Plus, I would have expected numbers to actually go down, especially in this current economy. But I guess not. Numbers have continued to go up. I do wonder how Foam Stars is doing numbers-wise, since it's free to all PlayStation Plus members. Hey Sony, we ever gonna get a PC port of that? Or do I need to go talk to Square down the road? Now, of course, active users does not mean that every single one has bought into something like PlayStation Plus. I myself personally have not had PlayStation Plus since 2017. And they don't release those numbers just like Xbox does not release its Game Pass numbers anymore. So time will tell if those price increases actually hurt them or not. Or if we see numbers for something like Foam Star, that might be able to give us an even better idea. Now, in regards to the screenshot, the last bit of information to take a look at is the sales of the PlayStation 5. We've heard for a while now that the PS5 has sold over 54 million units. That's in its lifetime though. This year, it is shown that 3.3 million units sold in Q1, so April of last year, so summer, 4.9 million units sold in Q2, and finally 8.2 million units in Q3. We also found out that they had a set goal of 25 million by the end of March 2024, aka the fiscal year of 2023. However, that does not seem possible as it's only around 16.4 million units sold as of right now. So they've actually lowered their estimates to around 21 million. First Bungie, now Sony. Is there a connection here? I have to wonder. Anyway, moving on from that, the company stated that its service revenue, which includes PSN, increased to its highest level ever, as shown by the picture from before. That record of active users is around 123 million, which is up by 11 million users. One thing to quickly take a note from this though, however, is from Dr. Sakan, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, based here in Tokyo as their industry consultants. Quote, after the Q2 sales came out in 2023, it was already crystal clear Sony would never reach 25 million units this fiscal year. Q3 was okay, but only possible because of Sony's heavy promotions and discounts during the holiday season. Now, based on that quote, if I had to personally take a guess at all of this, I would say that the hope on their end is that even though the immediate numbers are not where they want them to be, the long-term goal is that those sales made with said promotions will keep people in the Sony ecosystem. I mean, if those buyers stick around and start building their libraries and even sub to something like PlayStation Plus, then that's even more money for PlayStation and Sony right there. So with all those kind of numbers just sprinkled right there in front of you, it's just basic business talk essentially, right? They talk about their finances, where they've succeeded, where they came up short a little bit, and all that kind of stuff. Nothing really too crazy, and for the most part, your average consumer definitely does not care about this stuff. So let's just push that to the side and let's talk about some other stuff that I've been seeing a lot more people talk about online, and I think what the average gamer slash consumer is definitely more interested in. The first thing to talk about is that quote of no big exclusives for the next year. Now let's get a little more detail on that, because at the surface that looks really bad. But again, let's look at some quotes here. As stated before, there will be no big exclusive first-party games to be released. That is, however, for existing franchises. So think your God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon, Ghost of Tsushima, and so on. This does mean that new franchises could still be released though. One example is Concord. That is, of course, it's not actually delayed. We haven't seen much in terms of this game, but assuming things go the way they're supposed to be, that could still release, and that is a first-party game right there. This would also explain all of the third-party support from the recent State of Play and Sony's push for more third-party exclusives, both full exclusive and timed exclusive. We actually got a quote from the company that states, "Regarding first-party software, we aim to continue to focus on producing high-quality productions and producing live service games. While the major projects are currently under development, we do not plan to release any major existing franchise titles next fiscal year, like God of War and Spider-Man 2. As a side note, in fact, as I'm recording this video literally right now, Sony today, as of February 14th, 2024, trademarked a title, Intergalactic: The Heroic Prophet, over in the US. It is rumored that this is supposed to be a new first-party IP being worked on by either Naughty Dog or Santa Monica, or the rumors even suggest a combination of both. Seeing how at the end of last year, Naughty Dog themselves said that they are focusing on only single-player games, this is most likely a single-player game and not a live service game. Thank God. Now, going back to the quote regarding first-party exclusives, it seems like they are still focusing on their story-driven games like we know them for, and still pursuing that live service itch. Personally, not a fan of the live service games, but as we reported back in 2023, over half of those original projects have been frozen / halted. Plus, with the recent success of Helldivers 2, which was released on both PC and PS5, which has now broken records for PlayStation games on PC, it would not surprise me if they take this much slower than they originally were thinking. However, here's hoping that the success of Helldivers 2 does not give them a big ego boost and start making super bad shops on all of their live service games. Just saying, look at all the other ones that are currently on right now. However, I do wonder if this means that we're going to start seeing more PlayStation games on PC day one. Not all of them, mind you, since they still need to obviously sell their consoles and it's part of their plan right now. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Xbox is kind of doing something similar with their multi-platform strategy, if those rumors are true, where things go to Xbox first and then go to the other platforms later on. Obviously, PC is still day and date right there, but it is something interesting to think about, especially with the way things are going right now. The final bit of news is actually regarding with Spider-Man 2 and just those games in general. Spider-Man 2 itself has surpassed 10 million copies sold. We know from all of those leaked documents that Spider-Man 2 cost around $320 million to make. I have no idea if it was stated as well, but I have no idea how much of that was towards marketing or if that was just towards making the game. But 10 million is still pretty good. I believe according to those leaked documents, in order to break even, that includes their deal with Marvel and all those side costs obviously, is that they need to sell about 16 million copies. Now, I'm not going to say it will reach it 100%, but 10 million in 4 months, that's pretty good. So I think they could probably reach it, but again, time will tell. It was also shared with us that all 3 of the Spider-Man games on PlayStation and PC have now sold over 50 million copies, which is definitely really nice to see right there. So here's hoping to the success of the franchise going forward. So overall, after looking at all these numbers, it seems PlayStation, for the most part, is doing pretty well. We obviously know that things like costs have really gone up in terms of making the games and everything. And a lot of people are definitely concerned about the longevity of the consoles in this current state right now. Time will tell if things are going to change, but overall, I would personally say these numbers are decent. They're not groundbreaking or anything, but they're still pretty good. However, as we all know, Sony and PlayStation are a business, and their #1 priority is making sure those numbers go up and up and up for infinity. Now, the final thing I want to touch on after all of this news wrap up is actually from the chairman of PlayStation, at least for now until someone is found to replace Jim Ryan, and president of Sony, Hiroki Totoki. If you don't know who this guy is, this is the head of Sony right here, as I literally just stated, but he is currently filling in for Jim Ryan since Jim Ryan is retiring, so he's kind of acting as the head of PlayStation right now, again, until they find someone to replace him. He definitely had an interesting statement to make, and this is after spending the last few months of attending meetings with management, actually visiting PlayStation games development studios, to get a better understanding of the business, and a lot more. One of the quotes you'll probably be seeing around on social media and articles for the next couple of days states that while he's impressed with the motivation and creativity of the studio workers, he does believe that there is room for improvement when it comes to how they invest their money and plan development schedules. During this entire interview with him, it was even said that while the business revenue was up 15%, operating profit is down 26%, which seems to be partly due to a decrease in sales and increase in loss from hardware due to the promotions that we saw during the holidays. Again, if I had to guess, they're hoping that this short-term loss equals long-term success. Now, just from these quotes right away, this can be looked at in many different ways. Some comments I've seen online in social media are saying that this guy needs to get out of here because he is thinking like a businessman and not a gamer, which right now I'm just going to shoot down right this moment because first off, he's the head of Sony, not the head of PlayStation. He's simply just filling in until they find somebody. Second, PlayStation and Xbox, aka Sony and Microsoft, are businesses. Whoever can bring in the most profit and continue to do so is going to be the person that they keep. As cool as someone like Phil Spencer is, his first job is to be a leader and to make sure that the business is making money. I know it's a harsh reality, but that's just the way things work. So if the next person that comes in to take over Jim Ryan's spots does more of what we don't like, but it does well for the business, guess what? That's how it's going to be, regardless of how we personally think. I don't care what we think. People are still buying things. Other comments I saw online are wondering if they are really trying to backtrack a bit on what Jim did with so many of these live service pushes, and if they're going to start focusing on things like bringing down costs that we saw from things like Horizon and Spider-Man. Remember that Horizon cost $220 million to make, while Spider-Man cost $320 million to make. I myself personally would have said that Spider-Man was more due to the fact of Marvel's deal and everything, but with Horizon, well, I kind of see it now. I actually went back myself and played Horizon Forbidden West after a while, and with the amount of voice acting and cutscenes alone in that game, yeah, I can see why it probably costs a lot to make. Now, those are all just the comments that I've personally seen online, and it's been less than 24 hours since all that news was released. As for my own personal opinion, I was curious about this quote right here that he said. It's a little long, so bear with me. To quote the president of Sony, "It's been about 4 months since I became chairman, and I'm trying to demonstrate leadership and have as many meetings as possible with the management team. I also visited studios, and everyone is working really hard to fulfill their responsibility to trying to optimize the business, and I understand that. But overall growth and sustainable profitability or increasing margins, how will this translate to these goals? I don't think people understand that deeply. I think that is a problem of the organization. So as far as I'm concerned, I try to understand what is happening in the company, in the industry, and also from the perspective of analysts, and try to explain that in a transparent manner so that people can recognize and notice these issues so that we can have a harmonized approach going forward. People who work in the studios have very high motivation. They're very highly motivated. They're very good people, and they have great creative minds and knowledge of live streaming." Not sure where he said live streaming there. However, having said that, when it comes to the business, I think there is room for improvement, and that's to do with how to use money, the schedule of development, and how to fulfill one's accountability towards development. Those are my frank impressions. I will continue to engage in dialogue with the people so that we can find the right way to proceed. Now, I know that was a long quote and a lot of business talk and everything. The thing that caught my attention was the schedule of development near the end when talking about the business and how to use funds. Now, I might be reading a little bit too much into this, but I am really hoping he does not mean that they start releasing things sooner and not giving their games the proper time as a way to cut costs so production does not last as long, meaning less money to spend. I may not lead a multi-million-dollar corporation, but if Sony starts doing this, this is going to hurt them a lot in the long run. While there was a lot more that was quoted from him, this was the stuff that stuck out to me personally, and when it comes to covering things like PlayStation. So only time is going to tell if things are really going to improve or if the things that he talked about, he actually does. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. New chairman of PlayStation, for now, unless he decides to take the position permanently, which I don't think he's going to. A focus on third-party exclusives and first-party games, not for existing franchises though, and a year of many unknowns. Yeah, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of talk about this online. But like we said at the beginning of the video, maybe the inclusion of Xbox games will increase numbers even more, or that rumored PlayStation 5 Pro that is supposed to be releasing at the end of the year, maybe that helps pick things up. I don't know though, and in this current economy, it's kind of tough to say. I mean, it's been 4 years since the console released, even though for most of us, it doesn't feel like that due to what happened with all the scalpers and everything. I personally didn't get my PS5 until 2022. Needless to say, it's gonna be an interesting year for 2024. But now I want to ask you, what do you think about all this? Are you surprised by any of these numbers or statements that we just talked about during this video? Do you think PlayStation is going to have it tough this year? Do you think they're going to surpass 2023? Let us know all your thoughts below in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, then consider hitting that like button on the video and leaving a comment, or just leave your favorite emoji. Not only does it help us with the old scary algorithm, but it tells us if you enjoy these types of videos and if we should continue to make more. Also, don't forget to check out our other content in the top right corner or in the pinned comments. We got Final Fantasy Rebirth guides coming up soon, and we got streams almost every week. We actually talk about all this stuff, so if you want to talk to us in person, stop on by. With all that being said, I've been Tallen with Direct Gaming. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I hope you have a great day and week, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Johnny.